Imagine the person you love most is, well, they're in deep emotional pain.
Right.
You walk over, you put a comforting hand on their shoulder, and you tell them, hey, it's okay, we all have our ups and downs.
Which is a completely natural instinct.
Exactly. Your intention is pure love. But instead of comforting them, you just triggered a severe psychological episode.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Welcome to the counterintuitive reality of supporting someone living with bipolar disorder. Because it turns out that basic emotional first aid kit we all carry around, the instinct to relate, to hug, to normalize, is completely useless here.
It really is. In fact, it's essentially a communicative minefield.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this massive stack of clinical studies, therapeutic protocols, and caregiver guides we've gathered to really figure out how to truly support someone in that altered environment.
And that altered environment is key.
It is. We want to equip you, the listener, with practical science-backed tools to navigate this without burning yourself out in the process. Because to genuinely help, you really first have to unlearn almost everything you think you know about communication.
You do. And, I mean, the paradox is striking when you dive into the research. The very instincts we rely on as human beings to offer empathy through shared experience usually can actively make a bipolar episode worse.
Because the baseline is different.
Exactly. You're dealing with a situation where standard human communication just breaks down because the receiver's neurological environment is fundamentally altered. We have to start by establishing the physical reality of the condition.
Right. It's not just a bad mood.
No, not at all. Bipolar disorder is not just a series of intense mood swings. It is not a personality quirk, and it's certainly not a character flaw. It is a chronic, lifelong condition with severe biological underpinnings.
Which means you can't just talk someone out of it.
Precisely. Managing it requires a highly delicate balance of therapy, medication, and, crucially, a really educated support system. You, as the caregiver or partner, are never trying to fix the person.
Right.
You are learning how to manage a complex, highly volatile neurological ecosystem.
So to understand why our natural communication instincts fail so spectacularly, I feel like we need to, look under the hood. Let's talk about what is physically happening in the bipolar brain during these different episodes, because the biological contrast outlined in the sources it's wild.
It really is a profound physical shift in brain activity. So let's take a manic episode, for example.
Yeah.
During mania, the areas of the brain tied to reward and emotion become incredibly overstimulated.
Like firing on all cylinders.
Way beyond normal cylinders, yeah. The brain is literally flooded with dopamine and other neurotransmitters that signal pleasure and a deep sense of urgency.
Wow.
But simultaneously, and this is the dangerous part, the brain's impulse control centers, specifically in the prefrontal cortex, essentially weaken or just go completely offline.
So if we translate that, the emotional alarm bell and the desire for reward are drowning out the logical decision-making center.
Yes.
It's like the brain's accelerator is pressed to the floor, but someone has completely cut the brake lines.
That is the exact mechanism, yeah. And that biological state is why you see fast, pressured speech, racing thoughts, and, highly risky behavior.
Because the brakes are gone.
Right. Their brain is flooded with a relentless signal that basically says everything is a fantastic idea and we need to do it immediately.
Man, that sounds exhausting. But then on the flip side...
Right, the opposite pole. During a severe depressive episode, the regions responsible for motivation and pleasure just drop off a cliff.
Just totally shut down.
It's a biological drought. Basic tasks don't merely feel difficult. The brain is literally failing to provide the neurochemical momentum required to initiate any action at all.
When you lay out the biology like that, it completely explains why saying something like, hey, everyone has mood swings sometimes, is deeply invalidating.
Oh, that's the worst thing you can say.
Because you're reducing a very real neurological storm to, like, a standard Tuesday afternoon bad mood.
Exactly. To someone experiencing bipolar disorder, comparing their clinical mania or depression to your typical bad day feels incredibly dismissive. You are essentially telling them their altered reality isn't real.
Which has to be so isolating.
It is. Another major trap caregivers fall into is asking, hey, did you take your meds today?
Oh, I can see how that would go poorly.
Even if it comes from a place of genuine, loving concern, it almost always lands as an accusation.
Because it implies they're acting crazy.
Right. It shuts down the conversation entirely because it implies their current feelings, whether they're angry, sad, or joyful, aren't valid, but are just, a chemical misfire.
Uh,
And actually calling their behavior crazy, even jokingly, is incredibly damaging. It feeds directly into the internalized stigma and shame that so many patients battle on a daily basis.
I do have to push back on one piece of advice in these guides, though. They say you should never tell the person you're just overreacting. But, I mean, what if the person is clearly in a heightened state and they are objectively overreacting to a minor inconvenience, like, say they spill a glass of water and absolutely melt down? Shouldn't you point that out? Don't they need a reality check to bring them back down to earth?
The short answer is no.
Really?
Yeah, because a reality check assumes their logic center is fully operational. And as we just discussed, it isn't.
Oh, right. The brake lines are cut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chances are the person actually already knows their reaction is disproportionate. The problem is that biologically they cannot stop it. Their prefrontal cortex is being hijacked by their limbic system.
So telling them they're overreacting is redundant.
Worse than redundant. Pointing it out doesn't suddenly reboot their impulse control. It just makes them feel helpless and deeply frustrated with their own lack of control.
It's like telling someone with a broken leg that they're walking too slowly.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, they know they're walking slowly, the bone is broken. Pointing it out just makes them feel inadequate.
Exactly. So instead of trying to correct their reality, the sources stress that you must validate their emotional experience.
What does that sound like in practice, though?
You can say something like, your feelings are valid, even when they change rapidly. Or you can give them a sense of agency, which is a feeling that's often completely lost during a severe episode.
How so?
You ask them, would you like to talk about what you're feeling right now, or would you prefer a distraction? You give them a choice.
That makes a lot of sense. But I mean, a script can only get you so far when a crisis actually hits. Good communication builds trust, sure, but trust alone won't manage a chronic illness.
No, it won't.
So once you, the listener, know how to talk to your loved one, you really need a structured system for the moments when the neurological storm makes a direct hit.
And that is exactly where the clinical sources advocate for moving from words to concrete structure. Because you cannot make complex, life-altering medical decisions in the middle of a crisis.
The brain is just too chaotic.
Way too chaotic. So you create predetermined action plans. The guide suggests creating specific written templates, a depression plan, a mania plan, and a maintenance plan.
Yeah, these plans and the sources are incredibly detailed. They require you and your loved one to identify early warning signs long before an episode peaks.
Which is crucial.
Like a sudden decreased need for sleep. The sources say that is a classic, undeniable precursor to mania.
Almost universally, yes.
And then the plan lists predetermined steps. So if X happens, we do Y. For example, if the sleep drops below 4 hours a night, step 1 is calling the doctor to check medication levels. And step 2 is strictly limiting overstimulating activities, like late-night screen time.
Right, you take the decision-making out of it.
These are essentially emotional fire drills. You practice them and you write them down when there's no smoke in the air, so when the alarm finally goes off, nobody is panicking trying to figure out what to do. You just follow the steps on the paper.
I love that analogy. And this structured approach is actually a core component of a broader protocol called family-focused therapy, or FFT.
I saw that mentioned a lot.
Yeah. FFT is a highly effective, evidence-based treatment that treats the family unit, not just the individual patient. It combines psychoeducation, communication enhancement, and problem-solving skills for both the patient and their caregivers.
The data on FFT in the sources is phenomenal. It says it significantly lowers what the researchers call expressed emotions. And I assume that doesn't just mean crying or yelling, right? Based on how the clinicians use the term.
Right, it's a specific clinical term. Expressed emotions, or EE, refers to a very specific set of behaviors from the caregiver, things like hostility, critical comments, or emotional overinvolvement.
Emotional overinvolvement, like hovering.
Exactly. When a family has high EE, meaning there's constant criticism, or a caregiver who hovers and basically suffocates the patient, it is a massive predictor of relapse for the patient.
Wow, so the family's behavior directly impacts the relapse rate.
Absolutely. By teaching families how to communicate neutrally and solve problems methodically through FFT, studies show a significant reduction in the patient's depression and even their suicidal ideation.
That is incredible. But even with the best fire drills in therapy, things can still escalate. The sources spend a lot of time on managing intense irritability and bipolar rage.
Yes, That's a very challenging aspect.
While rage isn't technically a diagnostic symptom of bipolar disorder on its own, it frequently happens as a byproduct of mania or severe agitation, right?
It does. And the de-escalation tactics here are crucial.
What do you do when that hits?
You stay calm, you give them physical space, and you never, ever attempt to argue logic during a heated outburst.
Because, again, the logic center is offline.
You cannot logic someone out of a neurochemical fire.
Yeah.
When the rage hits, their analytical brain is completely inaccessible. Your only goal in that moment is to ensure physical safety and let the episode peak and naturally recede.
Just wait it out safely.
Precisely.
Well, all of these plans, the fire drills, the de-escalation, the therapy, they all seem to hinge on one massive core pillar, which is medication.
The foundation of it all.
But the sources reveal a behavioral hurdle that completely blew my mind. A staggering 59% of patients miss doses or fail to adhere to their prescription.
It's a huge number.
Nearly 6 out of 10 people are not taking the medication that keeps the neurological storm at bay.
It is a massive hurdle. But it is vital that we look at that 59% not as mere forgetfulness or stubbornness.
It's not just them being difficult.
No, the reasons for non-adherence are deeply intrinsically tied to the illness itself. Think about the manic phase.
Okay.
During a manic episode, the patient often feels fantastic. They feel invincible, highly creative, and entirely cured.
Oh,
So why would they voluntarily take a pill that acts as a wet blanket on that incredible feeling?
that makes total sense. They feel like a superhero and the pill is kryptonite.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, during a depressive episode, they lack the physical and emotional energy to even open a pill bottle.
It's just too much effort.
Right. Plus, the side effects of these medications are genuinely daunting. We are talking about extreme fatigue, significant weight gain, and an emotional numbness that makes them feel completely hollow.
But this puts you, the listener, the caregiver, in a terrible spot. How do you help them take their meds without turning into the medication police?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because nobody wants a relationship where one person is constantly nagging the other, checking pill boxes, and treating their partner or their child like a prisoner.
Navigating that is the ultimate tightrope walk of caregiving. The shift has to be from authoritative nagging to collaborative support.
What does that collaboration look like?
You aren't forcing them to take a pill. You are systematically lowering the barriers to adherence. For example, anchor the medication to an existing non-negotiable habit.
Like what?
Well, if they brush their teeth every single morning, the pill bottle lives right next to the toothpaste.
Oh, nice. You are reducing the mental load.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can also use external reminders, like specialized pill boxes with built-in timers or recurring phone alarms.
So it's the phone telling them it's time to take their medication, not you. You remove yourself as the source of friction.
Yes, you take on the role of a facilitator, offering to pick up the refills or setting up automatic pharmacy deliveries. You celebrate the small wins, acknowledging that taking the medication is genuinely hard work for them.
Empathy over enforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
And crucially, if daily pills are simply too difficult to hurdle due to the constant daily choice, there are medical alternatives.
Like what?
Patients can discuss long-acting injectables with their psychiatrist. Those might only be needed once a month. Or they can look into extended-release formulas. That way, if they do miss a midday dose, they don't experience a rapid, dangerous decompensation. Yeah.
And by decompensation, you mean falling off a chemical cliff where the symptoms rush back all at once.
Precisely. A sudden drop in medication levels can trigger an episode faster than if they hadn't been medicated at all. Extended release formulas create a smoother slope.
Okay, so you're managing emotional fire drills, you're carefully curating your vocabulary to avoid trigger words, you're acting as a pharmacy concierge. I mean, if you take on all this responsibility, you are running headfirst toward massive caregiver burnout.
It is incredibly taxing.
To sustain this kind of support over a lifetime, the sources make it clear that the caregiver has to build protective walls.
In therapy, we call them boundaries, and they are the absolute lifeline of the caregiver. Without them, the entire support system collapses under its own weight.
How do you build good ones?
It is helpful to look at boundaries on a spectrum. On one far end, you have highly rigid boundaries, being aloof, detached, refusing to engage at all just to protect your own peace.
Right.
On the other end, you have porous boundaries, oversharing, the total inability to say no, or accepting abusive treatment out of a sense of guilt or obligation.
So you want to aim for the healthy medium in the middle. The guides use an analogy that I think perfectly captures this. The safety gate analogy.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah. Boundaries in a relationship with someone with a severe mental illness shouldn't be massive brick walls. They should be like baby safety gates. They are sturdy enough that they cannot be knocked down, but they are low enough that you can still see each other, talk, and communicate with love across them.
It's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And the effectiveness of those safety gates depends entirely on how specifically you define them. Caregivers need strict boundaries around several key areas. Finances are a major one.
Oh, definitely.
What expenses will you cover? And at what specific dollar amount or behavior do you immediately cut off access to joint credit cards during a manic spending spree?
You have to know that beforehand.
Right. Time and communication require gates as well. What hours are you available to talk about their illness? What tone of voice or volume will you accept before you just leave the room?
And executive functioning, setting a boundary around the actual logistics of life, saying something like, hey, I will schedule your psychiatrist appointment because the phone calls give you severe anxiety, but you must be the one to remember the date and get yourself into the car.
You are assisting their function, not enabling their dysfunction.
Oh.
But, the true test of a safety gate is what happens when someone tries to push through it, because it will be crossed.
The illness will push against every limit you set.
Absolutely.
See, if they cross the boundary, my instinct would be to argue back, to stand my ground, defend the rule we set together, and explain why they are violating our agreement. But I'm guessing escalating the argument in that moment is exactly what the sources say not to do.
It is the worst thing you can do.
Figures.
You use the broken record technique. You remain completely calm, refusing to match their emotional elevation. You reinforce the boundary specifically, you explain the ramifications of crossing it, and you limit engagement.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. If they scream, "You expect me to do everything by myself," you do not argue the fairness of the arrangement. You simply say, "Remember, we agreed I will schedule the appointment, but you must remember to go. If you continue to yell at me, I'm going to step into the other room."
And then you just do it?
And then you do it over and over again. No debate, no negotiating.
Sturdy safety gates. But even with the best safety gates in place, caregiving takes a daily, grueling psychological toll on both the patient and the supporter.
It's exhausting.
How do you process the friction of living with this condition day in and day out? You need a daily maintenance tool. The sources point to a highly specific, science-backed method for mental hygiene, which is journaling.
Yes, and the science shows that not all journaling is created equal. Different types of journaling serve very different neurological functions.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, expressive writing, where you just write continuously without censoring yourself at all, is incredibly effective for processing trauma. It helps clear working memory.
Meaning it clears out the RAM of your brain so you aren't bogged down by background processing.
Exactly.
But what about third-person journaling? The sources mention writing about yourself as if you were a character in a book, saying, Sarah felt overwhelmed by the diagnosis, instead of I felt overwhelmed. How does that actually help?
It creates psychological distance. When you write in the first person, you are reliving the emotion. When you write in the third person, you force your brain to process the event as an observer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it shifts the brain's activity away from the emotional centers and into the analytical centers, which aids in emotional regulation and gives you a much broader, calmer perspective on your own life.
That is so cool. Then there's worry journaling, which feels incredibly practical.
Highly practical.
You schedule a 15-minute anxiety dump. You sit down, you write out every single intrusive thought, every fear about the future, and when the 15 minutes is up, you close the book. It trains your brain to contain anxiety to that specific window, rather than letting it bleed into your entire day.
And we really cannot overlook gratitude journaling. The research here is just staggering. Documenting specific things you are grateful for over 14 consecutive days can actually reduce depressive symptoms at a level comparable to clinical antidepressants in mild to moderate cases.
But the key word in the sources is specific. It cannot just be a generic, I'm grateful for my family.
No, that won't work as well.
It has to be, I'm grateful my sister called today because it made me feel less isolated during a tough afternoon. The specificity is what wires the brain differently to look for positive anomalies in your environment.
Exactly right.
But hold on, while reading through the guides, I caught a really fascinating warning. The guide explicitly says, do not journal during an anxiety spiral. Why would that be? Isn't a panic attack exactly when you need to get the feelings out on paper?
It seems entirely logical to write when you are overwhelmed, Ray.
Yeah, completely.
But it's a trap. Unstructured venting right in the middle of a panic attack or an anxiety spiral doesn't release the pressure. It actually increases rumination.
Wait, really?
Yes. You are essentially just practicing your anxiety on paper, cementing those frantic neural pathways.
So how do you get the thoughts out if you shouldn't write them down in the moment?
You have to use physiological grounding techniques first. Things like box breathing, plunging your face in cold water, or doing a physical body scan to lower your heart rate and bring your central nervous system back to a baseline.
So calm the body first.
Only after you have physically calmed down do you open the journal to write analytically about what just happened. You have to physically shift your body out of the reactive limbic system before you can use the analytical prefrontal cortex on the page.
And it requires consistency over duration. The data shows that spending 5 to 10 minutes a day journaling is infinitely better than panic writing for an hour once a month.
It has to be treated like brushing your teeth. Daily mental hygiene.
It's about maintaining a steady baseline for both the person with bipolar disorder and the person supporting them. So let's zoom out and summarize this incredible ecosystem of care we've explored today. Supporting someone with bipolar disorder is profoundly demanding, but it is deeply possible if you are willing to change your approach.
Very true.
You have to unlearn bad communication habits that invalidate their biological reality. You must proactively create action plans, those emotional fire drills, when the waters are calm. You have to shift from being the nagging medication police to being a collaborative partner who actively lowers the friction of taking pills.
Right.
You absolutely must install sturdy safety gate boundaries to protect yourself from the inevitability of caregiver burnout. And finally, you maintain your daily mental hygiene through targeted, specific journaling.
It's a really comprehensive, holistic approach. But, if we connect all of this to the bigger picture, it leaves us with something quite profound to consider.
Oh.
Well, we've seen how interventions like family-focused therapy prove that simply teaching a family how to communicate differently, how to build these safety gates and fire drills, can physically alter the severity and the relapse rate of a heavily biological illness like bipolar disorder.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Altering the social and familial environment genuinely treats the biological psychiatric condition, which raises an important question. To what extent are all of our individual mental health struggles actually community issues, just waiting for a collective solution? Are we spending all our time trying to cure isolated individuals when we should really be healing the family unit?